Thank you for listening to the Following Films podcast. Today I'm joined by Ted Sallee and Jason Sikorsky to unpack their 5-year journey making Going Postal, The Legacy Foretold. A bold, heartfelt, and cinematic deep dive into one of gaming's most controversial franchises. What started as a casual conversation in Tucson turned into an unexpected story of friendship, chaos, controversy, and creative grit. Set against the backdrop of the Arizona desert and steeped in gaming subculture, the film tells the behind-the-scenes story of Postal, a cult favorite game infamous for its violence and beloved for its refusal to conform. But at its heart, Going Postal isn't just about a game. It's about two creators, Mike J. and Vince, and their decades-long fight to keep their vision alive. Going Postal, The Legacy Foretold is currently available on VOD. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks.
Hey, Christopher, I got Jason here too.
Hey, Jason. How are you today, guys?
It's going good. Just working through a bunch of stuff on release day.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time out of your afternoon to do this. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for chatting with us. Appreciate it.
Are you guys
Blu-ray collection too?
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'm still one of those weirdos that collects Blu-rays and DVDs. So yeah. Are you guys in Arizona?
Yeah, we're in Phoenix.
Oh, okay. I'm based out of Tucson, so I
Cool.
saw a lot of familiar territory in the film when I was watching this. So I'm not used to feeling like home when I'm covering stuff for the show. So I appreciate that.
Damn, small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we both lived in Tucson for quite some time. I lived there for like 10 years before I moved up here. I was actually born down there, went to U of A.
Okay.
Dad over here lived down there for how long?
15 years
15
too.
years.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, T. Lokes at heart.
So okay, did you guys know this story as an Arizona story initially? Is that how you became aware of it? Because I was raised on the East Coast, so I never had an association with Arizona and the postal story. So that was something new to me. Did you guys know this the whole time?
No, it was completely random. It's transparently at the time I was dating this girl and we're just hanging out on my couch and I was just like telling her about this idea of, oh, me and my buddy Tad, we're gonna make this YouTube series about video game developers. And she was just like, oh, I know someone that works on video games. I was like, really? It's like, yeah, he lives here in Tucson. It's his name is Mike J. He does that Postal series. And then I was just like, wait, what? Postal? Like the video game? She was like, yeah, that the controversial one. And she like pulled up the game and showed me on my phone. And I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, I know that game. And so, yeah, she introduced us and we just sat down and chatted a bunch. And then, 5 years later, we have a documentary. So,
Wow. So how long, in that process, when did it become apparent that this was a story that you wanted to tell? Because documentary filmmaking it's an endeavor. It takes a lot of your time to put these things together. The amount of work that goes into it, I think, is underappreciated by most people. So what made you decide that this is a story I want to tell and spend literally years of my life on?
Yeah, we initially approached Mike J and Vince with the idea that this was going to be a YouTube series. So we had traveled to E3 at the last E3 in 2019, kind of scoping out our first idea for a video game IP. And we kind of left that not feeling like we found anybody that we really clicked with because there was a lot of like new developers. And obviously as first-time filmmakers, you're going into a huge industry. So without a catalog of a film that you've done before, not everybody was, welcoming to maybe do a story. So
yeah, they're like, oh, just a couple of dudes trying to make a movie.
make a movie.
Yeah.
And then Jason found the friend and who knew Mike J. And so it all kind of coincidentally kind of came together, which was really cool. But once we heard Mike J's story, we sat down with him over ramen and he told us this. And me and Jason were living together at the time. And I think we pretty much instinctively, as soon as we left that conversation, we went home and we were talking. We're like, I don't think this is a short version. This has to be a documentary. And then the scale of the project escalated over the years. Like originally it was going to be kind of a semi, kind of just a discussion about Postal instead of like the film that it is now, where it's a little bit more,
Yeah, more YouTube-y, but just
yeah, like a cinematic
Yeah.
piece. So, but yeah, here we are 5 years later. We started rolling. We met him in October. Let's see, we met Mike J, I think, in August or September of 2019 and started rolling cameras in October. So not a whole lot of pre-production time. And then we filmed for a couple of months. We went to PAX East with Mike J and Vince, and then COVID hit. It
Right.
was 2 weeks later. So we had to kind of reevaluate how everything that was going on in the film industry, but also for us, like we were going to travel the world to do these interviews. And we had to reevaluate and figure out, okay, how can we still do this and still try to hit our deadline, which was 2022 at the time. But then our project even escalated even further because we got investors, we started getting more money. So it just kept growing and growing and growing. And that's really why 5 years long. It took 5 years for us to produce it.
Well, it doesn't feel like something that was ever designed or thought of for YouTube. It does feel cinematic. This does feel like a film that you could watch in a theater. I was wondering, were there specific people that you felt were the linchpins, the absolute, I need to get this interview to make this happen?
That's a great question. Initially, I think it was like kind of all the low-hanging fruit that were involved directly with the Postal series. Outside of Mike J and Vince, it was like,
Sure.
Rick Hunter, because he voiced the Postal dude, and he was just, a big celebrity in the Postal world. And
He was hard to get too at the time.
yeah,
He wasn't available.
yeah, he lived in Tucson. He was like very elusive. He's kind of a hermit. He likes to keep to himself. He's not very like he's a very like typical radio type of person. You don't see his face a lot, but you hear his voice all the time. And that was true in like real life too. And so he finally like came out of the woodworks to work with us. But we thought he was going to be a big part of the documentary. And when we filmed his interview, it turned out it was just a very small part of the documentary. But like there was like Uwe Boll, who we knew was going to be like a big part of our documentary. There was like a lot of obvious characters that were involved that were just like, okay, he's a voice actor, he's a developer. And then it started kind of evolving past that. And we started realizing there was like a bigger story beyond just people directly involved. We found out that there's a guy named Brock Wilbur who wrote a book about Postal.
Right.
And then there's like a game historian named Stephen Kent. And it just kept snowballing. And then we realized that more of the outside objective type of personalities and voices became like the most extravagant and most interesting voices in our documentary because they could tell the story without looking or feeling biased. And, I think they kind of help move the story. Obviously Mike J and Vince are very good at telling the story through the lens of running with scissors, but we don't want it to be, a puff piece or a hit piece. So we try to balance all the talking heads. And I think it really worked out.
Yeah, definitely. And it changed too. Like as we were going through the film, like we I think initially never really thought about having like a historian, a video game historian in the film. And then it just so happened that Vince knew Stephen Kent and he knew a lot of the people that we interviewed. And that was a big help is having his resources of people that we could reach out to kind of help flesh out the film a little bit more. And so a lot of the people you see in the film are people that had an experience running with scissors at some point in their life.
That makes a lot of sense. I was wondering if when you're going through the process of putting this together and editing it and you're kind of finding the story as it goes along, I kind of would assume that there would be more focus on, and I'm actually glad there wasn't, on that reaction element to it. There's a lot of that here, but this is more than a story about our violent video games affecting children in this negative way. Is there a correlation, a connection there? So I feel like that's very well covered territory at this point. You do get into it, but that's not really what the film is about to me. So was there sort of a surprise that you were finding in this about what the film ultimately became about in the end?
Yeah, I mean, so we started this film towards the beginning of Postal 4's development cycle.
Mhm.
And our thought was, man, this is perfect timing. They're going to be making Postal 4. And right at the same time, Postal 4 is going to come out. We're going to release our documentary. They're going to get all these rave reviews. It's going to be like a big comeback. And then we can like release it together and everyone's going to win. Obviously that didn't happen. It was just kind of like our fairy tale story of how everything should end. But we did find that sort of happy ending. It just wasn't, it just didn't directly correlate with reception of Postal 4. It correlated with Mike, Jay, and Vince being best friends over many decades, fighting and scrapping all these years to just do what they love and continue to do it no matter what anybody says. And so we always described it as sort of a buddy film. And Pepsi, Where's My Jet on Netflix was a big influence for us. And it was like very similar. There's like an older figure, and then there's like the younger kid, and one became like a protege of the other. And they sort of like learned from each other and their paths crossed. And then through all this shit that they had to go through, they ended up just being really good friends. And it's like, even if you don't get your jet, at least you have your buddy, you know? It's like, and that was kind of how we felt about with Mike, Jay, and Vince. You know, they don't need the rave reviews and all the critical acclaim. As long as they have their Postal fans and each other, like they're happy. So that's kind of the story that ended up emerging, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, definitely more of an underdog story for sure, which I think is in a way not even a story about Postal, but a story about Mike, Jay, and Vince, and like how they're getting over all of these trials and tribulations throughout their development. And it's crazy that they're still here 25 years later. Like, you don't even find like AAA developers stick around as long as they do. For an indie developer, it's especially crazy, and hopefully, you know, gets other game developers inspired too.
Well, it's that thing they talk about, that they make enough to keep it going in the film, that I get to do this thing that I love with people that I love, and what else do you really need? And there's something that's really touching about that in a way that I wasn't anticipating. This is really a deeply human story, which is something that I wasn't expecting to see, you know, because this is a film about a controversial video game. And you touched on the reactions to it. I'm wondering if the both of you feel that the reactions the people have given to this game, this series of games rather, is justified.
Yeah, you mean in like seeing the fans' reaction about the documentary after watching it?
No. I'm sorry. The game itself.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because it's a very controversial game series, and it has a lot of negative feedback. So, do you feel that that sort of reaction to the game itself is justified?
Yeah, I would say in a lot of ways, yes. Especially for its time. You know, it's a compounded type of situation, right? When you have somebody out there that's a mouthpiece on behalf of a property that is controversial and violent, it's gonna make people feel away. I mean, if Vince Desi didn't go out of his way to say our game is controversial and it's full of violence and like we love this and this is what we do, it probably wouldn't have, you know, been as bad. But when you own it and own that spotlight and you go out and you perpetuate that story, I mean, that's just kind of like what's going to happen. It's as Robert Coffey said, you know, they made themselves a poster child of violent video games. Like they actively courted it, is what he says, and it's true. And like I never point blank said, Vince, did you actively court it? But it's just you study the history and you look at everything they did, and you know they say like, oh, we didn't like plan for this, but at the same time, it's like maybe you didn't plan it step by step, but I think you like got taken up in that whirlwind and you just stayed in it because you like the chaos.
Yeah,
so.
they owned it. And Grand Theft Auto came out at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and you didn't find like the PR people from Grand Theft Auto or Rockstar doing the same thing with what Vince Desi did. And I think maybe didn't help in their detriment, because like Grand Theft Auto obviously went off and became this huge IP, and Postal stayed this niche. But I think it's still cool because fans, you don't find a whole lot of fans who have like Grand Theft Auto shrines at their house. And we found a lot of Postal fans that have like full on shrines to Postal in their bedrooms or living rooms. And people like to find their niche. And I think, it's cool that these properties are still around, 25 years later, even today, just in their own merit.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a. Please go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, it is a niche gaming property, but I think the people that are fans of this game, they like it because it is different. They like it because it is controversial. There's something to be said about humans like purposely trying to be different or want to be different or feel different, and they gravitate towards things that kind of reflect that. I always say it's like the insane clown posse of video games, the fan base. And everything just is kind of the same. It's the same with like wrestling too, like WWF. It's got that same kind of vibe versus like Grand Theft Auto is like a very commercial type of property now, right? They may have started in that niche, but they kind of grew into very different places now. So
I will say that I think Insane Clown Posse fans are a little bit more like violent. I think you'll find that Postal fans are a lot more friendly. They're like,
except for that one person,
except for the one in the documentary. But that's a very rare case. I mean, you have that with other video games too. But yeah, no, they are the most welcoming fans and kind fans, and they're a really tight knit community, which is really cool. And I interviewed a dozen or more of them over the course of 5 years, talking about their experiences, and it's cool because it brought people together. And a lot of these people are maybe isolated or they don't have a whole lot of friends. So they found a community within Postal, and there's Reddit, boards. There's Discord threads all about Postal that are constantly going like every minute of every day, of people just talking about their love for Postal.
Well, it's like you find an underground band that you love or that indie film that you love that no one else has seen, and you get to be the person that shows it to other people. Then you find a community of other people that have that same love for this thing. When you're in your high school, and you're trying to connect with people, nobody else there knows about this thing that you love. And so if you can find your tribe, the Insane Clown Posse comparison, I think, is very valid, because I think that the Juggalos have a lot in common with whatever posties. I don't know. What do you call Postal fans? I don't know.
Posties.
I like that. You should start calling them that.
Posties.
Like, what's a postie? That's you.
I don't know. It rang a little bit too close to Swifty. They might not appreciate that. I'm not sure, but. So, yeah, I think that there is probably the Venn diagram. There's definitely going to be some overlap between those two fan bases. But to your point, I have a 14-year-old son, and there was up at, oh God, I can't remember. It's the Marquee in Phoenix. I can't remember whether it has 2 levels. There's like a basement and then the regular. I think it's the Marquee. I can't remember. One of the theaters up in Phoenix, I took him to see a show in the basement, and it was his first show. The thing that was playing in the main room was an Insane Clown Posse, whoever it was.
Oh,
one of the guys.
Theater.
Yes. And so it was
Twisted, I think, was there recently.
It was, yeah. It was, God, who was it? It's Silent. No, not. I want to say Silent J. Violent J. There you go.
Violent J.
Violent J was. I think that's who it was. But we were in the basement show, and walking through that parking lot afterwards is the most fucking nervous I've ever been in my life. Just in that with that group of people, and even the people that would walk up and saw me and my son, they're like, "Hey, don't walk over there. Those people are just straight gang members, and these are fans of the band. They're like, you don't want to be out here." So like 6 o'clock at night, and it was just no. I need to get the hell out of here. So anyway. Total side note tangent, but yes, I do agree with the idea of that fan base.
I grew up with ICP fans in Colorado. Like everybody in the town, that was their band, and I was bullied to the point with a lot of these like ICP fans, and they all found their community. So it was kind of like, hey, stay away from those guys. And just you find a bunch of them today, at least in my experience, that just aren't with us anymore. Sure. But no, it's a really cool comparison that I like that Jason makes, ICP fans and Postal fans. But I'll still say that I think Postal fans are, I think, a little bit more friendly for sure.
Have they embraced your documentary? To get back to what Tad's question or thought question was a little bit ago, they've embraced the film.
So far, it just came out today, and we've been getting, some pretty good reviews from fans. They're finally able to see it. We've been hyping it up for 5 years, and yeah, it's cool to be able to see them finally hear their reactions because we've been waiting, and we've been waiting for the public to kind of hear the response. And so far, and that's kind of the intent that we went into it with, is like to try to get a general audience to be interested in something that they had never knew about before, and maybe that's Postal, but also trying to cater to the Postal fans and telling that 25 years of history, and hopefully give them something that they didn't know about Postal or Running with Scissors before. And yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with the reactions so far. We'll see. It's only been out for 24 hours, so
Yeah, I think we have word of mouth on our side
yeah.
for sure. I'm excited for Postal fans to, they like to clamor about anything new via Postal, and I do think we have a strong documentary, just in the general sense that it's something that Postal fans will really enjoy and be impressed about. And objectively, there's a lot to learn. And I think for Postal fans, it checks all the boxes. So I really hope that they tell their friends and they enjoy it and hopefully watch it over and over again. And one of my favorite things that Vince says to us that I really appreciate is, you guys are now part of the Postal family. This project, I really love it. It's going to be part of our ecosystem, and we'll keep promoting it and putting it out to the world on our side for as long as we live. And we're just like, great, that we love to hear that.
Yeah. And we wanted to do a physical version of the film too, a Blu-ray, because the Postal fan community is like a big physical community. They like physical items, and Running with Scissors has done a great job over the years of producing everything physically. And like yourself with all the Blu-rays, I'm that same way. Like I have to have every single like video game or movie I purchase physically. And so it's great that we have it available to both, kind of families. If you want to watch it on TV, you can on a streamer, or if you want to purchase a Blu-ray, we have that available, shipping out within the next week or two.
Excellent.
And there's a lot of special features on it too. There's like 6 hours worth of special features. And we always wanted to really pour our heart and soul into giving them a little bit more to digest, because there's just so much content that we even had to cut from the film, even though it's 2 hours long, and there's a ton of deleted scenes and a couple of other segments in the film that didn't make the cut. So we hope that we give the people that buy the Blu-ray or going to buy the Blu-ray, something that's worth value.
Well, I that actually touches on something I wanted to ask about. How much footage do you think you had going into this for the editing process?
We had over 24 terabytes worth of footage at the very end of the day, over a course of 25 years, just of history.
Wow.
40 interviews. Each interview was maybe 2 hours long. We interviewed Mike and Vince 5 or 6 times. Quite a few of the interviews didn't actually make it into the cut of the film. I mean, it's probably thousands and thousands of hours worth of footage. Just the VHS tapes that when you see the beginning of the film when Mike and Vince are going into the basement, there's a box of VHS tapes. You can actually see it. We had all that transcoded, and all of that's like 10 hours worth of footage. And myself as the lead editor, I was always a big proponent of going through all of it, like making sure we have eyes on all of the B-roll, all of the old stuff that we got digitized, all the mini DV and the VHS tapes. So we could really make sure we did our homework, because I didn't want to miss something when you're telling a story that's just so rich in history. And that's a part of why it took so long. But yeah, thousands and thousands of hours. We had multiple editors that we had to bring onto the project just because we had so much to digest and look through. And then when you're doing an interview that's 2 hours long, sometimes that can go even longer.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to transcribe it all, make sure that we had everything so we could go back. And if we needed something, we could look at a document that had something from Robert Coffey saying something that could flesh out with whatever talking head is talking in the film at that time. So it was just doing our homework, and I wanted to make sure to do it right. But yeah, it's a lot of footage. We went through quite a bit of different processes of like how to store all that much footage, how we could make sure we backed it all up. So, I mean, we spent thousands of dollars just on backing up footage, having storage for footage, storing it on the cloud. So in case we ever had an issue, we'd have it backed up. But yeah, no, it's going to be nice to take a break from looking at that editing timeline for some time.
Well, I don't know how anybody can edit that much, because I have only done a couple of shorts, and when I've done those, I find it difficult to keep the thread of what's in my mind that I know about the story versus what has been shown in the actual film. When you have thousands of hours of material that you're going through, shaping that story into something that's coherent that's just a Herculean task. I don't know how you do that. So I'm always so wildly impressed by documentarians, especially people that edit their own stuff. That's just incredible. I don't know how people do it. So
I always
kudos.
joke. Thank you. I always joked with Jason that we should have just picked a narrative project. It'd have been a lot quicker.
Take half the time. Like, which take do you like? 1, 2, or 3? This reaction's the best. All right, put it in there.
Cool. Sweet.
But like listening to Vince and Mike J talk for just hours and hours and hours for years, and that's just 2 people, let alone everyone else. Just crazy.
Well,
and if you want to find a soundbite, God forbid you need something specific, you're like, oh my God, I have to go through all this stuff. There's some times where Tad's like, Jason, we need a soundbite here. Go find this. And, we'd have to go do it. Tad would do it himself too. And go both ways. And we just have to like look for something that fits.
Not crazy about AI, but having metadata that transcribes now at this point where you can actually go through and find that now, for that part of it alone is going to be so helpful. And just going to find that one thing where you're saying we need to have this connective tissue where somebody brings something up, we can go from that to the news footage to this other reaction from three totally different interviews and something that's maybe archival. To find all that and strike that and organize that is just so difficult. So that's one thing that'll hopefully make the world a little bit easier when it comes to that.
Yeah, we definitely about halfway through us like organizing everything, we started like transcoding everything.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I really was, I guess, was a fan of. I guess not a fan because it wasn't fun, but one thing that I think both of us agreed on was we should watch every second of every interview. So that way you can understand what they're saying, how they're saying it, and then would like transcribe it
manually
by hand. And we did that for most of the interviews. And then he would retranscribe it, digitally.
Right.
And then so we had both. So that way I had we had physical Word documents where we could control F and find sound bites. But also like if you're in the editing bay and you need to like look for something quick that way. So we had like both ways to work at it. And, for us to watch every second of the footage, it helped us understand what the tone of it was, where they were coming from and why and the context. So that was super helpful. It was hard to remember everything, but there was times where we'd sit there and be like, oh, I actually remember like somebody said this in this way. I think this might work. And, that was a lot easier. I mean, I think moving forward there is something to be said about like how we go about doing that, right?
There's
like,
an easier process for sure. It was a learning process.
Yeah. I mean, I still am okay like going through all the footage and just watching it and transcribing it by hand because it really helps you digest everything.
Yeah. Because AI doesn't, I can get it kind of there, but you still have to manually go in and recheck everything. And like AI wasn't around when we started this. I mean, that didn't come around till like 2023. I don't think
it was like commonplace. Yeah, and just like in 5 years, it just totally
blown up,
which is crazy.
So we've had to do everything by hand, and maybe in the future it'll help documentarians out. But I'm, like Jason, I'm still a big proponent of seeing it yourself because you really have to cater the story as a human. And I don't know about AI. Maybe at one point we'll get there, but I think, films need a human touch. And
I could not agree with you more. I was just the manual transcription of dialogue.
Sure. Yeah.
That is, I've had to do that, and it is one of the most mind-numbing things you can possibly do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when you're going to be like, give me a 2-hour postal documentary.
No.
Oh, geez, yeah.
No, nothing like that. But as somebody who's interviewed Uwe Boll twice now, but both those interviews were scheduled to be 15 minutes, and they both went over an hour each time that I talked to him. Editing him down because he's just I like the guy. I think he's fascinating. He's fun. He was really easy to talk to. His movies, he just has a singular point of view. But getting that focused and down with him, I could imagine. I know what that's like to get it to that. I enjoy the conversations I've had with him, but it's like the 45 minutes that we spent talking about food might not be appropriate for the context of this.
Yeah, no, he definitely likes to chatter, and it's hard not to want to talk with him, just knowing his history and, watching his movies growing up and just being like, this is the guy that's responsible for all these films and controversies over the years. He's really entertaining for sure.
Yeah, really, you think about it, he's the perfect guy to have directed the Postal movie.
Yeah, he really is.
No, if you don't think about it at the time, but looking back at it, you're like, yeah, that's who, if you were writing the screenplay, that's who you would have cast in that role. It's just absolutely perfect. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Dude, guys, congratulations on the film. I think you got something really special here. I have never played a Postal game in my life. I've watched the Postal movie. That's the extent of it. And I actually got a lot of out of this film. I actually really enjoyed it. So I think that this is something not only for the fans. I'm sure there's stuff in here they don't know about, but people that don't care about this game, don't know anything about the game, who maybe don't even care about games in general, but they want a little bit of an insight to perhaps what their 14-year-old is doing on the weekends, and a way into their connection and that idea of what the monster behind the veil and what the actual people were that are doing it. It's like when you see a documentary about Wes Craven or something, and you're like, I spit on your grave, and it was just a bunch of hippies making this movie, and it has a tenderness to it that I wasn't expecting. So, congrats, guys! You got something special.
No, thank you. That means a lot, and it's kind of fun to have people watch this film, kind of like getting drawn in for whatever reason, and then getting into it, and 2 hours later, they're like, "Oh, that's actually different than what I thought it was going to be." So it's really cool to hear that. Honestly, I think one of my favorite reactions is the unexpected ones.
Yeah, totally. My dad was kind of the same way, where he's, surface level thinking about, Postal is this very violent game. And then he actually met Mike and Vince because he owned a kombucha shop at the time. And Mike and Vince went and saw him. And he walked away with being like, yeah, these are really friendly guys. Like, they're very different than the games that they produce. Postal 4 is a little bit more comical nowadays, but like the early days of Postal 1, Postal 2, definitely something that you think like, who created this? Like, they must have fucked up minds.
Yeah, they do.
Well, a little bit.
They still do.
They still do. But, it's not like the chop up kind of serial killer kind of mind. It's the, we just like to have fun. It's the South Park kind of mind.
Yeah.
Well, it's the people that are bold enough to take the jokes that we make with each other at 3 o'clock in the morning when there's not cameras on, there's not mics on. I think this is a way that we often talk to each other. The gallows humor that we all share with each other. It's just they tapped into that and made something that, most of us would say, I don't want to put my name on that, but I can fuck around with that. I can play that. So
yeah, it's like similar where you have like group chats with the boys, and
those got leaked.
Probably don't want a paper trail, even though you're making a paper trail. I like 3 a.m. and you just say it out loud, so that way it just kind of flutters into the ether.
Exactly.
It's
I guess the archaic version of Snapchat where it just disappears. Actually talking to your friends face to face.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, thank you both so much, guys. I really appreciate it, and congratulations. I wish nothing but success on the film.
Thank you so much.
No, absolutely.
We used the bridges that we wired and blown. That time's over now. So over now. I can't say I'm sad to see it go. That's over now. So over now. So what you doing in a couple of years? On a Saturday, round Halloween, I'll take your hand and I'll spit up fake blood. most people never get what you've always been, always been, always been. And most people never get what